Hey everyone, welcome to this week's Akash Weekly Twitter Spaces. I'm Nadia Bajuelo, Community Events Manager here at Overclock Labs. I hope all of you guys, whether you're listening now, watching later, are having a great morning, afternoon, or evening wherever it is you're joining us from. As always, thank you guys, the amazing Akash community, for your support and amazing work. This week was filled with exciting announcements around the ecosystem. Greg will fill us in on those, but um, meanwhile, the insiders have continued cooking up community goodness, including guides, and they've been busy doing testing. Also, a special thank you to Praetor and their partnership in the development of the new Akash EDU program. Thank you guys. Keep deploying, keep spreading the word about Akash, keep doing what you're doing. With that, let's get started with today's spaces. Greg will kick us off with updates and news. After updates, we'll give you guys a full introduction to our guest today, Anthony Rosa, project lead at Moultrie Audits, and Tor Bair, founder of Secret Foundation. During our guest segment, we'll be talking to Anthony and Tor about the recent Department of Defense Bravo Hackathon. We'll move on to a short panel discussion with both our guests and Greg on institutional partnerships in Web3. And we'll wrap up with an AMA with Greg and our guests. As mentioned, we'll give a proper introduction and welcome to Anthony and Tor just after updates. But for right now, let's hand it off to the man of the hour and CEO of Overclock Labs, Greg Osuri. Take it away, Greg.
Thanks so much, Nadia. Great to be back for another episode of Twitter Spaces for Akash Network Weekly. Today we got a jam-packed spaces. So I'll try to keep the updates as quick as possible. I really want to get to and spend time with our with Anthony Rosa and Thor here, our amazing friends. So the first big update is Mainnet 4. We are due to launch Mainnet 4 in 3 weeks. It's looking really good so far. We completed all the testing. We froze the primary code. We're currently testing upgradability. As you all know, the main bottlenecks for decentralized networks is upgrading. So we're trying to simulate it as close as possible so we do not have issues on game day. If this goes well, we should put a proposal by next week that will indicate the binary and the signature for validators to go update the network. So if all goes well, we should have mainnet 4 in production in 3 weeks. This is the first instance an open market for IP addresses is ever launched. So I'm super excited for it. This adds discoverability to Akash network. So far, we were able to we had three other mainnets. First mainnet was a foundational, which added security to the Akash blockchain, and then the second was a functionality where you could actually trade for computational resources for the first time ever in an open setting. And third was the storage layer we added in mainnet 3, um, where we could do unbounded storage, so network storage. And fourth is discovery. Our next is going to be GPUs, so we're getting very, very close to GPUs. And I'll be speaking at Decentral Con next in Miami next month. If you're around, come down and say hi. I think this is around the same time as Art Basel. We do also have a discount, friend FREN 30 for a 30% discount. Go to decentralcon.com. If you're in Miami, love to see you. Um, we had a few ecosystem updates. Coin Mafia wrote a really cool article about five tools to five useful apps for Cosmos. Go check it out. It's on our weekly update thread. It talks about why Akash is important in Cosmos ecosystem. And we have our friend Demokos, who's been, very, very active. He went and deployed HyperSign, and HyperSign looks like is going to be using Akash, and they are pretty happy about it, according to their Twitter. So HyperSign is very interesting. It's a ZK a decentralized identity framework. It's something that I always kind of thought it'd be cool to have a way to verify your identity without showing your credentials. So it's really cool to see, the verification done through a zero knowledge proof. I'm really hoping to maybe even use this project one day. Check out Hyper Sign, another Akash ecosystem partner. Dimokos also deployed made network nodes on Akash. He wrote a really cool guide. Go check it out. It's on our weekly thread. Luna Forgo, our amazing contributor who created the Terraform plugin. For those of you that don't know, Terraform is a orchestration framework for the cloud that's used by 80% of the cloud today. If you want a repeatable or automatable way to provision and unprovision cloud resources, uh, Terraform is a go-to. Now with Terraform, you can use Akash. So you can have Akash infrastructure coexist with your other infrastructures like Google or on Amazon, or even migrate simply without having to do a lot of work. So Luna Forgo wrote a beautiful guide on how to migrate. It's on the forum. Go check it out. The link is in our weekly update thread that we posted last night. Um, Lots of, Praetor has been phenomenal. They've started a new Web3 educational program. Go check it out. It's on our weekly thread as well. Teaches you how to get on Akash and how to become a provider and a whole lot of goodies. And um, with that, I'll be wrapping up all the Akash-related ecosystem updates. We do have other Cosmos updates. Excel Core, XLR Core announced the Interop Summit for Web3 builders, our friends there. So go check it out. I think it's on, when is it? It's in Feb, I believe. So go check it out. It's pretty cool. Um, and Passage introduced Nostraga, a hip hop martial arts festival hosted on Package. This is really cool. Passage is a Akash ecosystem partner. They use Akash, they deploy Akash. So really go check out their festival. With that, I'll move on to our introducing you our guests, Nadia.
Thanks so much, Greg. Yes, so our first guest today is Anthony Rosa, project lead at Moultrie Audits. Anthony is a former unmanned aerial surveillance Marine Air Ground Task Force electronic warfare officer in the United States Marine Corps. He also led the deployment of an application directly supporting the evacuation of over 123,000 refugees during Operation Allies Refuge. He led the integration of 3 AI apps supporting DoD activities in hostile environments and received the Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medal for work done with the NSA in early 2022. Most recently, the Akash and Secret Network app won. Well, actually, we're going to let Anthony tell you what it won over at the DoD Bravo Hackathon. Welcome, Anthony. We're so excited to have you. How are you today?
Hey, thanks for having me. It's great to be on a Twitter Spaces. I think this is the first Twitter Spaces we're doing with Akash, and excited to talk about the application and with Tor.
Awesome. Hopefully, the first of many more. Today, we're also welcoming guest Tor, founder of Secret Foundation. Tor is the founder of Secret Foundation, an organization dedicated to scaling Web3 privacy solutions to global adoption. He has been working full time to grow the Secret Network's ecosystem since 2017. Tor has worked as a data scientist at organizations like Snapchat and Spotify and was previously a professional derivatives trader and market maker. He holds an MBA from MIT and an economics degree from Brown University. Welcome, Tor. So excited to have you as well. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. I'm joining from the Secret Network account. My personal Twitter is just my first name, last name, but I encourage people to follow both if you want to hear what we're up to in our ecosystem. And super excited to be joining this stage with Akash and obviously the Moultrie team because they built something amazing.
Awesome. Thank you. And guys, be sure to give his personal account and the Secret Network account a follow. Before we dive into the Department of Defense hackathon, I want to give you both a chance to tell us about your respective projects. Anthony, let's have you kick us off. Can you please give us an overview of Moultrie Audits? What do you guys do? Why do you do it? And can you give us a walkthrough of your roadmap and tell us where you are on your roadmap today?
Yeah, sure. So Moultrie Audits is a child organization to Moultrie Cryptography, and it focuses on infrastructure auditing, sort of the auditing arm of Moultrie Cryptography. In that subset, obviously our focus is Akash. So the purpose of auditing on Akash is principally to attest to provider performance and security so deployers can make educated decisions about their deployments. It also serves to help Akash open up to more serious deployers who may be subject to regulations. You think like healthcare or government involvement. Ultimately, we believe in a decentralized open web and think Akash plays a key role in that. So for our roadmap, we have a lot of concurrent activities going on. We also build smart contracts. Obviously, that's what the Hackathon app was. So we do smart contracts for funds, sometimes for cryptocurrency companies, sometimes for grants, and sometimes for the government. We have active projects in all of those categories currently. For the Akash specific side, the next item on the roadmap is going to be adding basketed audits to the tiered audit system. So we have pretty high demand for the lower level audits, but don't get much demand for the highest level audits. And part of the reason is we sort of bucketed every single regulation together, and you don't necessarily need all those. So if you're going for healthcare, we can now target the industry better with HIPAA, GDPR, high tech, et cetera. And then we might be able to leave out some things like NIST if they're not going to be related to the government.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Anthony. Tor, shifting over to you, can you get us pumped on Secret Network? Give us an overview of Secret Network, what you guys do, why you do it, and also walk us through your roadmap and tell us where you are on that roadmap today.
Sure. So Secret is an entire layer one, right? We're also part of the Cosmos ecosystem. We actually entered the Cosmos ecosystem back in February of 2020 with the launch of our mainnet. But the roots of the project are pretty old. We're based on foundational privacy research that was done at MIT back in 2015 by Secret Labs founder Guy Ziskind. That underlies everything that has been built on the network since then. And it was a vision to merge privacy technology with decentralized systems. And today, Secret is still the only layer one blockchain to have privacy preserving smart contracts live on mainnet. So expanding what's been possible before, which is generally just transactional privacy, maybe moving some value privately from one place to another. It's interesting and it's useful, but it's about 100 times less useful than providing an entire private computation platform that is also distributed and decentralized and usable by anybody in the world. So yes, we're private by default as a network, but we're also fully permissionless. Anybody can be deploying or using applications directly on the network. And because we're part of the Cosmos, we do have a huge focus on interoperability and allowing other chains to connect to Secret in our solutions. So we do provide privacy as a service. That's our vision to every other blockchain in existence, starting with the Cosmos, but we also have connections live to a lot of EVM ecosystems and a Monero bridge, for example. There's a lot of different ecosystems that are trying to connect with Secret as a privacy hub. And on our roadmap, we recently just did our second of 3 Shockwave upgrades. This is the Shockwave series of upgrades because we have fun branding. Most of it starts with S. And this was Shockwave Delta. We had Shockwave Alpha back in May. This is Shockwave Delta that we just completed. And that allowed us to launch CosmWasm 1.0. It laid the foundation for token transfers cross-chain. It's laying the foundation for interchain accounts and privacy as a service across the Cosmos. So all of those features are coming live over the next quarter. We also announced at Cosmoverse, where Akash had a great presence as well, we announced Secret 2.0, or at least we announced the announcement of Secret 2.0. So there is a very aggressive roadmap that's being considered so that we can keep our market leadership on privacy solutions. So people should stay tuned for that. We're going to have a lot more announcements coming out about Secret 2.0 and our vision towards this future over the next couple months. We've been in the space as an ecosystem for a very long time, as I said, with the roots back in 2015. We intend to be here for very much longer, and we're willing to do whatever it takes to ensure that we are still the market leaders in providing these extremely necessary privacy solutions. We also have a number of people in the audience today from the Secret Agency, which is one of our community programs, vastly successful community programs for engaging people all across the ecosystem and on multiple continents and dozens of countries that come and engage with the protocol, help us spread privacy education internationally at universities, et cetera. I'm sure they would love to come on stage and share their perspective soon as well, because I know some of them actually are familiar with the Moultrie project directly. So if they put their hands up, I'd love to have them on here later as well to share their perspective. But in the meantime, that's where we are on the roadmap. Secret 2.0 upcoming and all these Shockwave upgrades, lots of dApps launching, such as Shade Protocol, live dApps such as Sienna and Stash, and a lot of other things that you can explore in the Secret ecosystem. We're very proud to be a mainnet ecosystem, and that's why you can build things like Moultrie, because this is mainnet tech. So we're thrilled to be up here on stage with somebody else who very much prioritizes having pragmatic solutions in production, which is the Akash team. And I see a lot of parallels and overlap between our ecosystems.
Amazing. Let's move on to the story behind the DoD hackathon. Before jumping into the details, though, Anthony, can we begin with some background on the Bravo hackathon itself? What is the Bravo hackathon series?
So the Bravo Hackathon series is named after Project Bravo, which was held in the 1920s to disprove the importance of air power, and specifically in naval air combat. It clearly showed the opposite, which was that planes are actually really good at sinking ships. So it's sort of a funny beginning to the Bravo Hackathons. There's only been 2 Bravo Hackathons. They're the brainchild of the Air Force's Chief Digital Transformation Officer, Stuart Wagner. And the intent for him is to show the government essentially, like, we have a bunch of data. It's not just that we need to collect data, we need to actually use data effectively. So there's a bit of a rebellious spirit in the Bravo Hackathons. But basically, they give programmers who are selected a bunch of classified data, and then they present you with a list of solutions that the DoD needs, and they give you a bunch of time to try and figure it out. In Wagner's words, Bravo 1 was likely the most complex and largest data and software innovation event in Department of Defense history. It was really well organized, really well supported by some of the most important people in DoD technology development. We had 16 judges for the competition, dozens of guests from the DoD who came to see the presentations, and the final presentation was to the 3-star general, who's the Deputy Commandant for Air Combat Command. So a lot of good eyes on these projects. So that's sort of what Bravo Hackathon series is. Take a bunch of classified data and figure out how to make a solution that the government is looking for.
Amazing, and a bit of an unexpected origin story for it there. So, Anthony, how did you get involved in the Bravo Hackathon, and what drove you to combine Akash and Secret as a solution?
So my military background is a lot of tech. I enjoyed giving you the full MOS title, which was that huge thing of Unmanned Aerial Surveillance, Marine Air Ground Task Force, Electronic Warfare Officer. But I was also Link 16 Unit Manager, TAD with the NSA. Spent a lot of time at Platform 1, which is the software development integration arm for the DoD. And the Marine Corps is a pretty small community. It's the smallest branch in the military, and Marine Corps tech is very small. It's just not the focus of the specialized littoral combat force. So I had already established a bunch of connections with people familiar with this event and people who were helping to set up this event. Stuart Wagner is also a big crypto guy himself, the guy who set up the hackathon, and his wife works at Andreessen Horowitz. So we were already sort of familiar with him. The MAR admin dropped, and from there we were just off to the races. MAR admin being like when the Marine Corps puts out an official statement about something that's going on, or guidance passing to all Marines. So we chose Secret and Akash for a few different reasons. When you're given 100,000 gigabytes of unformatted classified data, most people are going to make a machine learning tool to try and make sense of it and build an application to visualize this data and predict data so you can take action in the future. And that's perfectly fine, but we didn't see the government as doing that effectively for new data being presented. Like, that was a retroactive application to build. So we wanted to address some of the root causes of the unused data. So that way, in the future, it wasn't analyzation. In the future, it was, we don't have troves of classified data that people won't be allowed to touch for a bunch of years, and then you hold a hackathon to do something about it. We do have to be like a little bit vague about the exact way we implemented the program, but essentially what the application does is it compresses data, and it's a way to send, distribute, and then destroy cryptographic keys, which are used for things like radio systems, ballistic missile systems, the different logins to computer systems, stuff that runs the actual drones themselves. So you have to plug in a key to actually have the drone go places and do things for specific missions, and they're good for specific time periods. So that's what the application does. And Secret was really the perfect choice and one of the only choices for transferring information that need to be private while offloading infrastructure requirements to a third party. It's also, we know how to program in CosmWasm, so it's a fun use case for that. And then Akash is a great solution for using government systems to access the application through a proxy address, which is your wallet address, without needing to build any new product. So you get the benefit of the cryptographic parts of the application being exported to Secret's infrastructure, and then the actual access of these different programs you can use with your own systems if you're the government, but sort of protect your identity quite a bit. And we see a lot of good things in the future with Secret and Akash. Specifically, one of the things Akash has talked about for a while is homomorphic encryption, allowing providers to host different deployments. And what homomorphic encryption is, it allows you to do compute on things without actually needing to see the information itself. You can do work on encrypted data, which would mean like providers can touch your deployments. And with Secret 2.0, homomorphic encryption is coming. So when that does drop, we at Moultrie plan to make some contracts to have Akash deployments leverage the homomorphic encryption of Secret Network. And then that way it's going to offload a lot of the technical requirements for the Akash team. I don't know if that's going to be something Akash is also going to do, but whenever Secret launches it, I think that's going to be a great partnership for Secret and Akash.
Awesome. Anthony, your participation in the hackathon was full of accomplishments. Could you share some of those, like, for example, what awards were won? And if you don't mind, could you share with the Akash community some of the systems and deployed environments that are running on Akash still as a result of the hackathon? You've given us a little bit of a taste of some of this, but could you just elaborate a little bit more?
So the app won first place for most tactically relevant for maintenance data, and second place for most tactically relevant for cyber operations. There was 3 categories related to data. So we got first in one, placed second in the other, and the third one had nothing to do with the application we were building. So it's a good showing for us. We were approached afterwards by the A29 Tech Innovation Office. Like the denominations for military departments are a bit weird, but in the Air Combat Command for the Air Force, like A29, that's going to be the tech side for that. So it's kind of the office when you're presenting to the Air Force. They want us to continue development on the product. And as far as if they're actively running the application, I have no idea what they're doing with it right now, but we are in the process of negotiating the way Moultrie can move this over to the NSA. There's a full intent to move it to the NSA to make it operational. That's going to come with a lot of things. I mean, there's strict ethics laws in the government. And so like, we run a validator on Akash. We own a lot of Akash. So all of those details are going to need to be worked out before this thing goes live. And yeah, there's just a lot of details to figure out, but there is progress being made at the speed of the government to make this product operational. However, the demonstrative use case was enough to convince the Marine Air Wing, 2nd Marine Air Wing, which our Marine Corps unit was a part of when I was active duty, which was very recently, to begin moving over acquired sites and information to Akash. So we submitted a bunch of documentation about how Akash works, and we put up the first website, DoD website, running on Akash, and the government requires each military unit to have public access, like for the unit itself, to various information. And that's usually held on the isolated computer network at the unit. But we made a website where it's a client-side encryption. So it's the encrypted file is what's actually stored on the server for Akash, and it's not decrypted over the server. It's decrypted on the client side. And now the Marines can get access to all that information. So that website's running Akash. Ma has intent to move other sites over to Akash. Once again, the big selling point of that is it's not on AWS anymore. It's not going to be on Azure. It's going to be on the military's own systems. We'll be running it ourselves. We'll essentially be paying ourselves to run it. And the specific information about that provider will be able to be concealed through the wallet address.
Amazing. And I like how you put that, the speed of the government. Tor, shifting over to you for a moment here. What's your take on utilizing Akash alongside Secret in the way that Anthony's described in a control environment? How do you see Akash and Secret combining in similar environments at scale, maybe even a global scale?
Yeah, first of all, it's so awesome to hear about some of these things that I know have been discussed as use cases for years, actually winning hackathons and crushing it. It is so cool to hear. So big props and congratulations again. In terms of how Secret and Akash can be working together or utilized together, so first of all, I should emphasize that every time we speak publicly about Secret, I'm talking about privacy and I'm talking about decentralization, because that's kind of what we're at the intersection of. And I make the point that decentralized solutions really require privacy to do the things that they say that they do. They say that they protect users, they're more empowering, they do all these services, but realistically, for them to do that, they need to be able to provide privacy to the users that are operating with these systems. If they're completely open, radically transparent systems, there's very few use cases that can be served by like fully transparent technologies that are decentralized. So we always say decentralization needs privacy. But when you flip that around, we also see that for privacy solutions to be useful, sustainable, empowering, all the things we say they are, they really do need to be decentralized. And as much of the stack needs to be decentralized as possible. We really require that privacy solutions be decentralized and not held in trust by like centralized organizations or having centralized front ends or any of these other things if we want them to be useful. We're seeing this already where things like Tornado Cash, where it's open source code that's deployed on a public blockchain, and governments still are really arresting developers without published cause, right? Privacy and various freedoms are already actively under attack. The best thing that we can do to protect these sort of human rights is to have more decentralized freedoms. And as we're kind of hearing on today's space, realistically, governments do understand the value of privacy. They do understand why sensitive data is sensitive and needs to be protected. And they do understand the value of decentralized systems and sustainable systems and distributed systems that are more robust. They understand all these things. Privacy is not incompatible with governments. Instead, it should be embraced. So what we're trying to do, with Secret at least, is ensure that we are building a future where instead of seeing governments going after people who are building privacy solutions in these critical technologies, they're winning hackathons, right? They're getting rewarded for building these kind of technologies and getting them to global scale. So that's our vision. I think it's Akash's vision as well. And where the two really interact is we want to remove, right, all of this dependence, if we can, for example, on front ends for privacy preserving dApps on the network. And we already have, I think, some applications on the network that are building cross-chain like this, like Lorem Ipsum is using Akash partially for their front ends. And I know that Bushi is looking into the same, and other various secret dApps are trying to do this, again, for their own sustainability and decentralization, because privacy needs decentralization, decentralization needs privacy. And also having hardware decentralization is important if you're going to have global applications. If you're going to have things that really scale to global use, they're not really global use if all the computers are located in a single data center somewhere in Southeast Florida or in AWS West. So these are things that we think about on a daily basis, right? People need to be building in every area of the stack. Where Secret's expertise is, at least on the blockchain development side, our expertise is all around in providing privacy solutions. And as they're pointing out, we have a roadmap that takes us from where our privacy solutions are today, using a lot of secure enclave technologies, to where we're going tomorrow, integrating things like FHE, MPC, zero knowledge, in conjunction with our existing solutions, and having this whole constellation of privacy solutions available, and then combining the solutions with networks like Akash that are providing other critical decentralization functions. Suddenly, we're seeing the full decentralized Web3 stack come into focus. And as we're seeing, that can serve not just individuals, but institutions and governments and global organizations, all of which kind of require these same solutions to be available. My personal perspective is I'll only be happy if this is available to everybody. I don't want only governments to have the capacity to build and deploy these technologies, but it's clear from the fact that governments are expressing, and Department of Defense is expressing, there's a need for these kinds of technologies to be available. And we already know that individuals need these kinds of technologies to be available in order to empower them. I think it's safe to say that we've already found product market fit with this stuff, that between Secret and Akash and combining even more decentralized networks with them, we're already seeing demand for what's been built. And we're proud to be part of that small coalition of blockchain builders that are building things that are truly globally useful and not just built for speculation.
Thanks, Tor. Anthony, this collaboration was a relatively long process. How are you able to coordinate with Akash, and how do you envision continuity?
Yeah, so we have weekly meetings with Alani, who's the Akash team's technical program manager, where we talk strategy, cooperation, direction for both of us. We're working on a separate project too with Praters, so we do Akash stuff with them and non-Akash stuff with them. So there's pretty tight correlation between us, the Akash teams, and even other Akash partners. So that's never really been an issue. Continuity-wise, there is a lot to figure out that I alluded to earlier, just because, you can understand how if we build something on Akash and we own Akash, it could come up, and then there's announcements about Akash, we do Twitter Spaces, could come across we're just trying to pump our bags, and we didn't choose it because it's the best technological solution. When really we used it because it's the best technological solution, and we're perfectly happy to cooperate in whatever we need to do in regards to our assets to continue development, to make this operational, because that's important for the safety of people in the military, and just in the spirit of meritocracy, that the government is using the things that are the most effective solutions to their problems for the taxpayer and for efficiency's sake. So beyond that, development adoption in our minds takes precedence, and we intend to see it through. For people who haven't worked in government before, it is a very slow process. So that hackathon article had very sparse information if you read it, and took months to release. So if 500 words takes months, you can imagine a full stack app involving classified material, how long that's going to take to have information public about it and things like that, which is a bummer for us in the sense that most projects can just put out something whenever they make progress, and you can show a GitHub repository. We made a smart contract, the one we alluded to earlier with Prater, and it took a month, and we told a bunch of people, and that's just not the speed that things happen in the government. So it might seem like we're off for a while, but it's not because work isn't being done. It's just that's how things go when you work with the government. So we'll keep people updated to the best of our abilities, but just know there's just a lot of things you can't say in the meantime until it gets declassified, unless you want to go to jail.
No, don't want to do that. We'll definitely keep an eye out for updates. But I think even you being on here, and this has been a long-awaited story, and hearing about it now will give us a better idea of what may be going on behind the scenes, and we'll definitely look forward to when things can be released and discussed. Tor, Anthony, we'll be closing our guest segment here with what's next for you guys and where to follow you and all that. But first, I'd like to hear your thoughts and Greg's thoughts on institutional partners in Web3. And Tor, you've actually begun to touch on that. Big question, is there a place for institutions of state, Web 2, and Web 3 to coexist while still protecting privacy and self-sovereignty? And if you believe that there is, do you see any risks with public-private partnerships between institutions of state and blockchain companies? Tor's and Secret really prides itself on privacy and self-sovereignty, and you've kind of started to touch on this. Let's start with your insight.
Yeah, I think the challenge, which is already being touched on by the Moultrie team here, is the timelines that these kinds of organizations move on. Like it's really just that the frequencies, the vibration frequencies for these industries move at different rates. The state moves at one pace. Traditional organizations like outside the technology space in enterprise move at another pace. Tech companies in Web 2 move at another pace. And Web 3 moves at the most insane, fastest pace of all. So it's really tough to align priorities and stakeholders between these organizations and in remembering that this has really only been an industry for about a decade. Really tough to align those stakeholders long enough to get something done beyond a pilot program. I think this is the first year where we're really seeing enough continuity and enough understanding to even start doing the things that we were talking about maybe half a decade ago. And I said that we have roots in our project going back to 2015. In 2016, we were trying to sell enterprise privacy solutions. And essentially what we were told is that no one was ready to trust this crazy blockchain technology or these crazy privacy technologies. And at the time, that was probably true. A lot of the people that in enterprises were very responsive to our messaging and our product pitch around that time left the enterprise space, and now they work full-time in Web3 as founders. I know many of them in the Cosmos ecosystem. So until we have stakeholders at these traditional organizations who are just as educated about these technologies as the people who are leaving these organizations to build them, it's going to be tough maybe to align interest long enough to get things done. But again, that's improving. That understanding is improving. Obviously, the need is only increasing. Awareness of the need is only increasing. In general, I think that's the main blocker. I think everybody universally cares about protecting privacy. I think at least their own privacy. I do say sometimes the government loves privacy, just not necessarily yours. And then in terms of self-sovereignty, I think that on an individual level, we all feel that. Even though at an organizational level, we may not always feel it. The individuals in those organizations do understand what it feels like to be empowered, to have the ability to consent to something. So I am encouraged. I do think because people universally share these values, I do believe these kinds of public-private partnerships are possible. I just think the challenge is less on that ethos side and much more around just aligning timelines, stakeholders, and incentives long enough to see things get done.
Greg, Anthony, anything you guys would like to add?
It's a really good way to put it. And this is amazing. I mean, I'm just sitting here and taking down notes and just like reflecting on everything Thor and Anthony has been talking about. Public partnerships, public-private partnerships, it's very, very interesting, right? Like, I guess it's not, but I think it's an interesting observation to make that, at one hand you have, Department of Treasury that basically banned a smart contract or a decentralized application. On the other hand, you have another branch of the government embrace decentralization. So I think it really comes down to like, it's not embracing decentralization as a whole. I think it's like embracing or acknowledging applications, right? The clear rejection from the state about finance, right? I mean, privacy and finance, but there's clear acceptance for privacy when it comes to communications. So I think it's very important now for us to decouple. Just like the internet, just because you use Facebook doesn't mean it's similar to using an Uber or Airbnb, right? There's just completely different things. Internet is just a means to the end. End of the day, it's what the end really that matters, right? So similarly, decentralization is a means to an end. The end is the application of the decentralization. What Secret clearly demonstrates is that, well, you can have privacy built into this inherently open network and and guarantees self sovereignty, right? So it's very, very interesting observation. And now we're getting into this like mode where things are getting very serious. I talked to several large Fortune 50 companies. Um, all of them actually having dedicated Web3 teams or planning to have a dedicated Web3 teams. I think this bear market is going to be great for us overall because it's a lot less noise and a lot of the tourists left. And it's serious builders that have strong convictions stay because there's no more money, right? So when you talk about pumping your bags, if that was the intention, this announcement would have come during a bull market, right? So now that there's nothing to pump. It's pure adoptions, pure use utility. None of this news is going to make any dent in any of the prices, right? So I'm actually kind of glad news like this comes out, real adoption comes out in a bear market, because you can actually focus on what is really happening, right? And this is a clear embrace. I mean, it's a clear indication that, hey, a use case for Akash is like, hey, if you have hardware lying around and you want to use that hardware yourself to deploy applications, it's really hard. I mean, setting up, if you think about it, setting up a deployment platform that has a federated and homogeneous way to deploy across your hardware is actually very, very hard to do. Right? Even though you deploy Kubernetes, doesn't mean you get the deployability. By using Akash, you can have the deployability. Today, the government, DoD spends billions of dollars for Amazon to have a sovereign deployment platform, which can be replaced by an open source system, right? So open source is clearly winning here, and that's the story. I mean that's the story that is going to, I think, matter when it comes to large enterprises and institutions are coming. I mean, I know this is this thing we've been talking about forever, but I think people are getting this next bull run is going to be mainstream adoption, and we're starting to see that come about very quickly. So I'm super excited to hear these amazing stories and use cases we always talked about, like Thor was saying, use cases we always talked about. And I'm particularly interested in the shockwave, sorry, the Secret 2.0 with IBC and with interchain accounts. Now we can think about secret deployments, something that I always wanted to have but couldn't really, get to. With new IB with interchain accounts, a secret account can directly deploy an Akash without needing an Akash account, which is fascinating because everything you do on Akash is public. Adding privacy to deployments has been a thing that I always wanted. So, and with Akash, eventually supporting secure enclaves in the future, I think you're going to be able to run secret nodes as well on Akash. So it's going to be a very amazing future, right? So you can have, and with GPUs, you can imagine like secret deployments that could do machine learning, and I mean you get into all kinds of possibilities not in not so distant future. So I'm super excited for protocols that can interoperate with each other. It's always been a dream of crypto, and now we're seeing that as a real possibility. So I'm super excited.
Anthony, anything to add?
Yeah, it's everything I was thinking was kind of touched on, which is sort of funny. But just to piggyback off of what Tor and Greg said, in my personal experience, like the government is still quite suspicious of blockchain. They enjoy it when they can use it for something, but there's still like that lack of understanding of why it has to be a blockchain. And I'll say the government has always used and developed privacy technology. If you think Tor came from the Navy, I mean, the internet in general was used, early development of the internet, the military had a lot to do with. And so it's just hard to know because, like, I am not the DoD. I'm not the Marine Corps. I'm one person in it. And the government is millions of people. And like Greg said, the Federal Reserve, Department of Treasury is not the DoD. The DoD isn't the Department of Education, and they constantly fight with each other. Even the branches of the military fight with each other about what direction to go. So how all the drops of water in the tide form and where the tide goes is very hard to predict. I agree with Tor that it seems like the government likes to maximize its privacy and minimize the privacy of U.S. citizens. And ultimately, though, there's no way to stop governments from using open source technology. So, like, even if the government had the most malicious of intentions, like, there's nothing you can do about it. So might as well embrace it and try and win them over through expressing the utilities of this. And why the government acts in a tyrannical way is a question that's really outside of technology and more into philosophy anyways. So, Web3 companies that are open to engaging with the government probably be looked at with less suspicion generally, but no guarantees. And Libra was taken down. FTX is getting sued now. And those are companies that are quite cooperative with the government. So it's just difficult to know. The DoD is not
Yeah, I think it's
not a
also
lawyer
very
either.
interesting to see like how this adoption happened, right? Like you are part of the Marine Corps, and Akash doesn't have standing sales teams to go target the Marine Corps. The fact that Akash and Secret were able to get to, I assume Secret doesn't have standing enterprise sales teams, right? So or Secret Foundation. So, I mean, the fact that you're able to get to a Marine Corps, the fact that you're able to have this kind of like network effects oriented adoption is key. And that's why I think we talk about blockchain and all that, I mean, from a technology perspective, but also from a societal standpoint, the permissionless interaction essentially removes friction from interaction between parties, between counterparties. So, and that enables, like adoption like this, right? So people that believe in a decentralized future, that people that share the values of decentralization with the projects that implement them, are inherently vested to spread the philosophy, right? So I think adoption is going to be not a corporate based adoption, it's going to be network based adoption, right? And that's why I'm super bullish, and that's very key. And why decentralization? Because of this, it's just spreading these value systems at internet scale. So yes, I understand. I mean, companies, I mean, governments can be suspicious about decentralization because I feel like they don't fully yet understand decentralization. And this is a first-hand experience. So we are actually we'll be announcing very soon, but the Web3 working group that we established, we helped found to with several other protocols to decouple Web3 and really expand understanding of Web3 beyond DeFi and NFTs, right? I think Web3 is much bigger than that. So, so that we don't get embodied into this, like, hey, for government, DeFi is basically fintech 2.0, right? That's what they're going. They think it's unregulated. It's a wild west, which to a degree it is, right? So it's inherently it's understandable. They don't really trust, right, Web3 yet. But I think what we're doing from like a policy standpoint and collectively with other protocols is also key. And what you are doing from educational standpoint, all of us are doing from educational standpoint is going to be even bigger than a lobby-based approach. So I'm very bullish. Yeah, short term it looks painful, but over the long horizon, which we are here, uh, you know, for the longest horizon possible, I'm super bullish.
With that, let's get our AMA opened up for questions for Greg, Tor, and Anthony. From Telegram, we have somebody asking, what about plans for the US Department to run providers on Akash? If they use providers run by people, wouldn't there be possible leaks of information?
Yeah, so sort of talked about this earlier, but it's, just to be very specific in terms of the department, I can only speak for like the people I work with. So not trying to make general claims about the entire DoD, but second Ma, yes, definitely the intent to run their own providers. And I would envision that would be the trend would be for the DoD to set up their own providers.
Whisper Node, welcome. Go ahead with your question.
Hey, what's up, guys? So I've talked to Moultrie a little bit about this idea. I actually have 10 years of experience as a contracting officer for the Navy. And this use case is super exciting to me to kind of see two worlds that I've been involved in collide. So I guess my question is mostly for Anthony, and he kind of answered one in that he worked for Platform One, and that is like, what is the biggest challenge you think working with a government organization on a new technology like this? For example, I've worked with the authority to operate requirement for a long time for software as a service to the government. And I know how painful that process can be. So I'm curious, what you think the biggest challenge is there, and how you think an application or any crypto application might be able to pass those NIST standards and get that authority to operate.
Yeah, so there's a lot in that question. Obviously, at Platform One, we also issued ATOs. So, in my opinion, the most difficult thing is the continuity aspect, because like we have a ton of data. Right? We have so much data that we literally can't use it, and we don't even have the people there anymore who were on the systems. Like there's data about how many times somebody twitches in an airplane, or if you shoot a bullet, how many times will the person twitch on camera? I mean, it's just like crazy amounts of random data, and the pilots aren't there, and those aircraft are deprecated, and et cetera. So like we funded a lot of applications, and I worked on 17 different applications when I was at Platform One. And it's just like how many of those are actually going to be used for a long period of time, or how many were built for one instance, and then another team came in with the wonderful new idea through AI, ML, blockchain, words on it. And I think the continuity aspect is tough. In terms of ATOs, though, for different crypto companies, the biggest thing, in my opinion, is having somebody who like is familiar with the connections in the government. That is like so massively important, because then it's not just the technology, it's the person on the team knows exactly what's going on. Like when we presented at the hackathon, like everything's foreign to these people. You say like, this is a COSMWASM contract. Like they're like, what the hell is COSMWASM? You know, on top of everything else that's already foreign. So having people inside the government who know you, I think is key. But also companies like Platform One, or not companies, but like things like Platform One are really crucial on the DoD side to speeding things up, because we were able to authorize ATOs in days when it usually takes a really long time. That flight tracking software for Operation Allies Refuge was something that happened in under a week, which is unheard of for the government, just because we were given essentially full autonomy. When the government needs something to happen and actually needs it to happen, then they just let us go, and the paperwork's handled on the back end. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I was thinking about like the FedRAMP process, which takes like 18 months. So the Platform One thing is awesome. I guess I had a follow-up, like, I don't know if there's time, but I guess it would just be, do you think that the government will eventually be comfortable with using public chains like Akash and Secret Network, or do you think that these COSMWASM chains will need to have these kind of enterprise chain spin-offs that may, communicate back with the public chain?
Yeah, that's a good question in terms of when adoption grows. I don't think it's necessary by proof right now that we have government websites running on Akash. But if the government, like the Department of Defense, was going to ship all of its stuff over to something like Akash, I don't know if they would need an enterprise chain. That's an interesting question.
Thank you so much for stopping by, Whispernote. Thank you for your question.
On the note, I think if they use public or private chain doesn't really matter. The fact that a government would be using Akash and Secret is the credibility, right? You get, so there's a way to capture value indirectly. Now Akash and Secret is military grade, right? So it's like I think there's a lot of value when it comes to credibility that can go a long way. So it doesn't really matter if they use public or private, as long as
not just credibility, just the education that's involved in this, the opportunities it gives you to reach those new audiences who do care even more about using public deployments of it, or more. I always say permissionless deployments of all of these technologies. You just get so many more cracks at the right stakeholders and the right people to even educate them about the solutions they probably don't know exist. We live in our own bubble a lot of the time in the Web3 space, but you have to remember, so do these people. And the more we can kind of punch away at these silos, just by launch, and the best way to do that is to show stuff that works, however it works. That punches away at the silo. It gets people to think differently than they did before about the potential of these technologies, and also think differently about what they themselves could build with them.
Well, yeah, well said.
And then, Greg, let's finish off with this person had more of a broader news question, but they did get their question in super bright and early to us. So this was, they say, question to Greg Osuri, any thought on Aptos blockchain? They just recently launched Mainnet. They're run by people that formerly worked at Meta, got huge amounts of investing from top tier VCs, which is good and bad at the same time. What are your thoughts, and are there any plans to run Aptos nodes and projects on Akash while it's being hyped?
I mean, it seems very interesting. I met the founder and whatnot. It's I mean, it's just faster, better Solana, right? Like, so it's a lot of hype. I think, that's really negative part of it. I mean, on when they launched, they were valued at $54 billion in this market. So it's kind of crazy. We don't really like the hype train because it's too much noise. Yeah, I'd love to run, Aptos nodes on Akash. I mean, it definitely seems very promising. I really don't know too much to have an expert opinion on it. I haven't paid attention too much into it. I've been super heads down with Mainnet 4 release, so I actually don't have any credible or any thoughts that would matter about Aptos, unfortunately.
No worries there. All right. Well, guys, we are just about out of time. Thank you so much to Greg, Anthony, and Tor for joining us on Spaces today. And a huge thank you to all of you for joining today or listening to this later on. Anthony, where should we go to follow Moultrie and the latest updates, Moultrie Audits and the latest updates?
You can follow us on Twitter at Audits Moultrie. You can go into the Akash Discord where we have a channel. You can visit our website, moultrieaudits.com, or you can send me an email direct if you got any questions, Anthony Rosa at moultrieaudits.com.
Tor, where should we keep up with the latest Secret Network updates?
Please follow this Twitter account. It's a really fun Twitter account. Please also jump into our Discord, chat.scrt.network. The main website's at scrt.network. Our blog is at scrt.network/blog. Agents are at scrt.network/agents. If you are wondering how to get a foothold in the Web3 space, you have no idea, but privacy sounds really awesome to you, we have thousands of agents all over the world, secret agents who advance this cause of privacy education, and they are the best group of people you can ever spend time around. Many of them go on to found companies in our ecosystem, operate validators, join existing DApp projects. They've done so much, and we're so proud to have these people calling the secret ecosystem and the broader cosmos as well their home. So please, if you're interested, if you've just been trying to find a way in and you weren't sure how, we've put a lot of work into making sure that's as easy and as fun and engaging and rewarding as possible. Check out the Secret Agency program, get in touch with anybody in our Discord. They can help get you set up and started, and stay tuned for Secret 2.0.
Awesome. Everyone here, guys, give them a follow. Make sure you keep up with the latest. This has been an awesome Spaces with them, and we thank you guys for your time. Before we get together next time, though, guys, let's keep in touch between the Akash Weekly Spaces. Go sign up for our newsletter at akashnetwork.substack.com. In the About page, Zach's got a link to the blog. Check out the latest post from Anil Murthy, head of product. He's got a blog series going. Look out for the next post coming soon. We're also super excited about Mainnet 4. Look out for more content surrounding Mainnet 4 in the next few weeks. Don't forget to head over to Telegram tomorrow, Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific, where Blockpain will join us for an AMA with a 300 AKT prize pool for the best questions. Make sure that on Tuesdays, you're hopping over to Discord for quizzes at 8 a.m. Pacific with 200 AKT and rewards and 5 winners. Join us next week, Wednesday at 8 a.m. Pacific for our next Akash Weekly Spaces with Greg. Tap that set reminder button as soon as we post it. And go ahead and check out akash.network/community and find out how you can spread the word about Akash and help this project grow by becoming an Akash insider. Greg, any last thoughts before we say goodbye?
No, just super excited. This is a brilliant conversation. I'm super excited for Mainnet 4 coming out, and first ever open IP address marketplace. So keep an eye on it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining today's event. Thanks one more time to Greg, Anthony, and Tor for spending time with us. It was a great conversation. Thank you guys so much. We really appreciate your time. See you next Wednesday with Greg at 8 a.m. Pacific.
Thanks for